Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Holl, and Ben Love of Gigantic Brewing in Portland, Oregon is my guest this week. We're going to be talking about disappearing hops, returnable bottles, and bad decisions made with gin. We're going to get into the show in just a moment, but first, this episode is sponsored by Lawson's Finest Liquids. And joining me on the line is Sean Lawson. He is the namesake of the brewery, and we're talking about Sip of Sunshine. And Sean, so many people associate the brewery with this particular beer, but I think a refresher or an introduction is probably always good. So if you can shine some light on this beer, I'd appreciate it.
The Sip of Sunshine came to be back in the late 2000s when I was experimenting with this new hop called Citra.
Ooh.
And it was part of the new wave of hops that instead of featuring, pine and citrus as the classic Pacific Northwest sea hop, it presented a much fruitier flavor profile, a little bit softer bitterness. And I made actually a 5-gallon batch of homebrew, and as I was sipping on it, I was like, "Oh, this is like juicy fruit gum. It's like drinking sunshine." And turned it into Double Sunshine and started brewing it at our little brewery up in Warren, Vermont. And in 2014, demand had just outpaced our supply incredibly. And at that point in time, I was looking at our options, and Two Roads Brewing had just opened, and I took a look at the option there and decided to formulate a beer that would be inspired by Double Sunshine, but would be slightly different. It's a little bit lighter on the palate. It's a little bit lighter in color, a little bit more dangerously drinkable at 8%, and I called it Sip of Sunshine. And that bright yellow can has become synonymous with the Lawson's Finest name, and I'm so thrilled that so many fans have followed us on this journey along the way and have made Sip of Sunshine our number one signature liquid.
Well, we're going to talk about the importance of the beer on the brewery at the bottom of the show when you'll be back with us to talk some more. But for now, you can find more information about Sip of Sunshine and all of the other breweries' beers by going to lawsonsfinest.com. We're also sponsored by NZ Hops, the cooperative of master hop growers. They are a passionate collective of farms dedicated to innovation and sustainability. Leading the charge in sustainable farm practices, some NZ hop farms have over 5 generations of knowledge that inform their composting program used by growers to promote healthy, regenerative growth of hops year upon year. This creates high-quality soil, a critical component of healthy growing conditions. At NZ Hops, they feel that sustainability is not only being a steward for the land, but for our future. We're in it together. Join the conversation at nzhops.co.nz or on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. We're also brought to you by Dragon's Milk. 20 years ago, New Holland Brewing Company embarked on a journey into the unknown, brewing the first batch of Dragon's Milk bourbon barrel-aged stout, which started as a single barrel in the back of the brewery, has transformed into the best-selling American-made stout today. Pairing rich notes of chocolate and coffee from roasted malts with deep tones of vanilla and oak. It's from its time in bourbon barrels. Each bottle of Dragon's Milk is a delicious adventure waiting to be opened. Find Dragon's Milk near you at dragonsmilk.com. So welcome to the show. By the time you're hearing this, if all goes according to plan, when this episode goes live, I'll be down the Jersey Shore. I'll be unplugged and drinking cream ale. It's been a long planned vacation. And as I got ready for some days away, I had this sense of senioritis kind of kick in. I knew I needed to get a show done, but my brain was also mushy from deadlines in life and the desire to head into just a week off. So when an email from Ben Love popped up in my email, I knew exactly what to do. I've known Ben for years. I've been to his brewery, the one that he co-founded with Van Having, and even spent some time, as you'll hear, with him in New Zealand, where he poured at the Beervana Festival, and I spoke at the country's black tie brewers gathering. Ben is a brewer who likes to tease out flavors and look for the unexpected. He also has a traditionalistic streak in him, and all of it shows in his beer. He's also a world-class conversationalist, and I knew that having him on the show would be an easy layup as I head into break. Is it lazy? Yeah, maybe. But it's still entertaining and informative for you because I would never, ever, ever sacrifice on that. So here it is. Ben was at the brewery in Portland, Oregon, and I kick things off with a cupcake question. What's going on, Ben Love?
Things aren't too bad. I mean, as far as like COVID goes, Oregon reopened at the end of June, and so we're back to like full capacity here, and things are going pretty good. People are out and about, and living their lives more normally again, so that's good. We were excited. My wife is Canadian, and so we were able to travel back to Canada to see her family at the beginning of July when they opened that place up again, which worked out pretty well. It was pretty. It was interesting because we had 3 COVID tests, like two one to get in, one once we got there, and then one to come back to the States, of course. And
that is a lot of nasal swabbing.
It is a lot of nasal swabbing. Yeah. And it's actually, I only had one COVID test during, like an actual COVID test when I got sick, and, hey, maybe it's COVID. And the one that they don't do the one that goes like up into your brain anymore, that, it's just the inside your nose, which actually I kind of find it worse because it's really ticklish, and it's hard not to sneeze. Like the other one feels really strange, but
yeah,
that's about it, So we're going back to Canada again at the end of August, and so we'll get to go through and get a bunch of tests again, and
so more nose tickles.
More nose tickles, yeah, exactly.
That's a good name for a beer, by the way. If you were going to name a beer Nose Tickles, what style of beer would you name it? What's the ultimate style for that? Yeah.
Oh, geez, man, I don't even know. Might as well make something that sells, and like a hazy IPA.
Oh, see, that's just, come on.
I know, that's an easy one, right? It's funny because actually you asked me that, and I think of just the other night I was sitting out front of our tap room, and somebody had those like Harry Potter jelly bellies, which are basically like disgusting flavors. And so, it goes right to that in my mind. I think one of them was earwax, so we could just make a snot flavored beer. That sounds.
I'm immediately regretting having you on the show this week.
See,
we're like 3 minutes into it.
My mind went right away. That's where my mind went immediately, and I was like, I'm gonna play it safe. I'll be like, let's make a beer that sells. Because what else would nose tickles be? I mean, maybe something with with coca leaves.
Okay. Well, why'd your brain go there?
Because of cocaine.
Okay. Oh.
You're gonna have to edit all this out, aren't you?
No. Oh, no. I'm going on vacation next week. This is all just live to tape, just being just thrown up on the internet.
Nose tickles, right? What else? Nose tickles. What would you do?
I'm not a brewer. I just come up with the really good names and then let your creativity fly from there. I did a quick search while we were talking. There's a beer called, let's see, looks like there's tongue tickles, and then there's some other beers called tickle parts, which I don't even want to walk down that road. But I don't see nose tickles. So you have like a whole week to get TTB approval before this goes out in the world and somebody else is going to take it over. Can I ask you about the creative process? Because I know you're a brewery that puts out a lot of different beers, and you have over the years, and in some cases you have nods to tradition, but in other cases you are doing offbeat or trying to skew something just so that you're putting your own spin on it. When you're creating a beer recipe for the first time, where do you start?
Wow. It depends on the beer. I mean, for that, like nose tickles is actually kind of a good example. I kind of think about what that makes me think of, and so it depends on if we're doing something along those lines. I guess that's more of like a challenge beer. So typically if we're creating a beer, I'm usually going for something that it's a flavor that I want to either put into a beer, or like, let's say like a hop that I've had before, or I had somebody else's beer and I'm like, wow, I really like that hop. I think I want to make it, take it and do it a certain way to get the flavor that I want out of it. And then, I mean, we've done a number of cocktail beers or cocktail inspired beers. And so, starting with those flavors and then basically, deconstructing them and trying to find ways to put that flavor into a beer. So, we've done like a Corpse Survivor. So, we were looking at the citrus in that. We have
remind people what's in a Corpse Survivor, especially me,
totally,
because it's been a while.
Yeah. So, Corpse Survivor is lemon, gin, typically, and the Corpse Survivor number 2 has absinthe in it, and then it. I feel like it also has the one that we did. We put some gentian root in it as well, which is basically it's part of making tonic, and so it has a bitterness that's similar to quinine, but it's not as harsh.
Okay.
And so we add that in the hop bag, and then we put a bunch of fresh lemon and orange into the gin barrels. We have this great access to gin barrels from Ransom Distillery here in Oregon.
Okay.
And they make a fantastic Old Tom gin that they age. They're a distillery and winery, and so they take their old wine barrels and age their gin in it, along with they do like whiskey and a few other products as well, like a grappa and some other things.
But everything starts off clean, gets wine, and then spirits?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then we get those freshly emptied. And the one beer that we do in that's kind of a regular beer is the Pipe Wrench, which is our gin barrel aged IPA.
Yeah.
Which got me in a lot of trouble when we were in New Zealand together, down for that longest lunch. Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that. They were serving that. It was like this 4-hour lunch that they did. And yeah. But it was in the dinner or the lunch was in the lobby of the hotel. So it wasn't like it was hard to get home.
No, well, what it was is that, we did the lunch, and it was three or four of us brewers from the US, 3 or 4 brewers from New Zealand, and we all presented our beers, and I presented the Pipe Wrench, and then we went from there to I think they called the event Mashing In, which was basically like the local Brewers Guild held a intro event for the festival, and so we went over there and had a bunch of drinks, and then we made our way down to the malt house, and Mike from Panhead Brewing and Joe, those guys they are huge gin fans, and Mike was telling Joe about this beer, and I was explaining to them how the whole Pipe Wrench thing comes out of it's a drop shot. So it's it's a Boilermaker. Essentially, it's you drop a shot of gin into a pint of IPA and down that. And right away, like Mike and Joe were like, "Well, let's do that," And it's like, this is basically the end of the night for me. And and we went in, and I remember they had like 3 IPAs on tap, and they were all like 9% plus.
Yeah.
That's all they had, and one of them was the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, which was a beer that Joe and Mike had been a part of making. I think it was like 10, 11, 12%. And so, we did that. We just did like a 30 centiliter pour. Didn't go for a full pint. But yeah, that was quite the intro to Beervana down in Wellington.
Yeah, that was 2014 that we did that.
Was it that long ago? Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah, we were much younger men at that point where we could
totally
not necessarily need a Corpse Reviver cocktail.
Well, and that was in our Backstreet Boys phase. I don't know if you remember that we had those fantastic like headsets they had us wear when we were doing the
all the presentations and everything.
Yeah, the presentations at like the chef stage and stuff. And
what I remember from that festival was it was the first time that I had ever seen. So this is Beervana. It's in Wellington. I think they still do it every year, but they had a tattoo parlor set up inside of the festival, so people could get tattoos while they were at the beer festival.
Yeah, that was Panhead Brewing's their booth.
It was an actual brewery booth.
Yeah. So it was a brewery booth. It was those guys had built that tattoo parlor as their basically their stand for pouring their pints. Yeah, and they had people in there getting tattooed. What's crazy about that is Mike was telling me that they built it for the fest, and then that was like the one time it was ever existed. They didn't.
that festival
They basically do something new every year,
Well, that festival has it did a competition, excuse me, among brewers. And you would like win, I don't know, I guess bragging rights or maybe fabulous cash prizes. I don't know, but for the most inventive booth or the most exciting booth or something like that.
Yeah. I remember the Garage Project guys, they had like a booth that was essentially, it was kind of up on stilts and it was surrounded by like laser lights. And I feel like they might have even had smoke, although maybe they were just like taking beer and adding nitrogen. That's actually, the smoke was that they're adding liquid nitrogen to beer to make like beer slushies or beer sorbet or something like that. Okay. So yeah, no, they get pretty creative down there. It was a lot of fun.
Do you miss festivals?
Yes, to a certain extent. Like, yeah, I mean, I have a great time going to festivals and hanging out, and so yeah, I do miss them in some ways. Although at the same time, I don't know. Like, we got to do a lot of camping last year, so that was really exciting. It was something that I think normally I don't feel like I have the time for because like be during when it's busy, we'll be going somewhere. It seems like every 4 to 6 weeks. And so when I'm home, I just want to be home. And so it was kind of nice to have all that time to go do other things. But I'm definitely I'm excited for traveling. We're invited to the McKellar Festival in Copenhagen that they moved to October. So got our plane tickets. We're planning to go to that as long as they still let us in, so I'm excited to get back on the road and hang out with people and take part in these events again.
So your brewery has, international renownedness. I know you're still small despite the name, but you guys go to a lot of events or, do a lot of collaborations with international brewers, national brewers. You must get hit up all the time to go to things. What is it for you? Like, what's the threshold to get gigantic at a beer festival? Is it just somebody asking you, or are you discerning on certain levels?
Yeah, we're discerning to a certain extent because we can't do everything. We just don't have the time. I would love to do everything, but like you said, we are still a small brewery, so I have to be here to run things, to do my part of this business. Unfortunately, I'm not we aren't big enough. We aren't making enough money that I can hire somebody to essentially do my job, so I can just travel the world and drink beer, which would be pretty amazing. So we do have to pick and choose, and sometimes, the last festival that I went to is that I can think of, international festival that wasn't invited. There's a great festival in Portugal called Art Beer Fest, and it's one.
What's it called again?
Art Beer Fest.
Art Beer Fest. Okay, cool.
And it's in Caminha, which is this little tiny town at the north end of Portugal. It's about an hour north of Porto. And I'd seen some videos and pictures of it and stuff, and it just looked amazing. And I met one of the organizers, Octavio, at the McKellar Festival. And so, anyways, I hit him up and also through a brewer friend, and was like, hey, if you guys are looking for anybody, I'd love to come check this, come be a part of your festival and everything. And he was like, yeah, totally. So he came out, and that's actually one that, I'm hoping to go again next year. We're planning on going next year if it happens, or everything comes together and stuff. Right. But even that, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, what's the appeal though to go to festivals? Cause you sound jazzed about this, but I talk to brewers now and again, and part of it is, okay, it's going to be name recognition for us to be there, or, hey, there's going to be some people that we know that we can hang out in, or we can be in a different city or something like that. But there's usually an undercurrent of, but this is a lot of work, and I don't necessarily know if there's a huge return for the business on the back end of this, or there's the party side, and then there's sort of the deep dark rational side.
Yeah, totally. And I guess for me, it's really it's having fun. It's having fun and get to know these other brewers, and we always, I don't think there's monetary, as far as like what I usually get out of it is meeting another brewer or meeting meeting these other people, getting to know them really well, and then having resources, when we're working on new projects. And so, you get to have a lot of times at these festivals, you got people that are making stunt beers essentially for these festivals. And sometimes, you'd be like, oh, I'm interested in this thing, this aspect of a beer. And so you're like, I had the beer that this guy made for this festival, and I'll hit him up. I know him now. And so it helps me out that way. As far as like business goes, I think, I don't know. It seems to me most people that come to Gigantic, that actually buy Gigantic beer, live in Portland, Oregon, and they have no idea that we're traveling to these festivals all around the world to pour our beer, And so that's not an aspect of selling our beer day to day necessarily. I'm sure there are people that travel to Portland and do beer travel and come to our brewery because we've been at these festivals. So there is an aspect of that, but it's not like the huge. It's not a big driver. I guess for us and for me, it's having the opportunity to travel, going to experience these festivals, getting to hang out with great people, getting to learn how to make these different beers, and yeah, I think, getting to these festivals, it was always a driver for our brewery to kind of like to be able to travel the world as a result of making beer. And yeah, kind of losing my train of thought now.
No, but is there an example though of something that you tasted at a festival that sort of sparked your creativity that turned into something else?
It's funny. I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now, but I know that it's happened.
Okay. All right. I'll let you sit on that for a second, but because I want to go back to something else that you said earlier when you were talking about hops, and you said, getting the flavor that you want out of them. And I've talked with Van about this before. And I guess you all are experimenting with different ways of hopping your beers, or you've used different processes in the past and gotten some fun results out of it. It's not just like, oh, we have Citra Mosaic, we're going to just dump it in a beer. You're really trying to like manipulate things to, I guess, push hops to its limit in some cases, and trying to bring out sort of the unexpected, or at least the not so common. Is that fair?
Or utilizing hops. I think Mosaic is a great example, and I don't think. And one of the things that we do with that is typically when we use a Mosaic, we'll use it and we'll in the kettle, and we'll boil it for at least 10 minutes because that seems to bring out more pronounced that red fruit that not juicy, but yeah, I guess that real like
red fruit, like ripe red fruit or character. Like berry.
Like berry, yes, yeah, okay. Like a berry character, and we still use the dry hop as well, but typically if we're writing a recipe, we'll use it in that way, and so we're always, we have, well, any brewer does, but we have, of course, we can put it in the kettle, we can put it in our hop back, which we have like a full size hop back. Essentially, it's a mash tun because we use whole leaf hops on the hot side. And then, of course, we can, dry hop as well, just like any brewer. But depending on where you add these different hops, you bring out different aspects of hop aroma and flavor. And so, yeah, we're always experimenting to get the right flavor out of those hops. And also, like, it's one of those things. You have somebody else's beer and it's made with a hop variety you haven't tried before, and you're like, wow, this is really exciting. I really, like these flavors. How it's hard we get these hops in, and the way that we typically experiment with them to begin with is to put them in a cask of our IPA. And
really,
so
just your base, just your core IPA,
basic, core Gigantic IPA. So we'll get experimental hops in. We put a few ounces in a cask, and that's how we try it. So that's kind of step one for us. And then, so I guess point being, it's nice to have these festivals to to go try actual beers that are made with these hops, so you can get a better understanding of flavor, and what something's going to be like. I mean, I think about like the Craft Brewers Conference, and a big part of that, all the hop brewers and the suppliers and everything, they have those. They're pouring different beers at their booths that are made with all these new hops, so that you can get an idea of what exactly what kind of flavors and aromas you're going to get out of a hop. And yeah, because otherwise, I mean, it's a big gamble. Most people don't have a small brewing system. They're not going to home brew up a batch. And so if you bring something in, you need a way to test it out. So it's nice to have either a festival or a Craft Brewers Conference, or for us, doing like pins in order to try hops out.
So after something hits for you guys in the cask, what's the next step then?
So the next step for us, we do our brew house, 15 barrel brew house. And so we'll do a single like 15 barrel draft only batch, and just scale it up and kind of see what that beer is like, and then go from there. I mean, we are always doing new beers, so it's kind of nice for us that they can pretty quickly turn into like an actual production size batch for us. But that's basically we just kind of run with it from there. We also, we do a lot of collaborations, and so the collaborations are a great opportunity to try new hops as well. And it's funny, right off the top of my head, we got one coming up. We're brewing in a couple of weeks with Future Primitive Brewing from Seattle. And we're going to be using lemon drop hops in it. And I get it, like lemon drop is nothing new. Lemon drop's been around for quite a long time. Yeah. But we've never really used it before. And so those guys were like, hey, what do you think about some lemon drop? And then also cashmere. That's another newish one that we actually just did a collaboration with Barrel Brewing, which actually I think that's how we ended up doing this interview. I sent you the press release for that, and you're like, "Hey, we should talk."
Yeah, I said, "Hey, I'm going on vacation. I need an easy interview with somebody who I know, who I feel like can just sort of take the reins from my mush-addled brain, and I can just sort of lob easy questions, and we'll go from there."
Let them run with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for getting back to me so quick. But so. I'm glad that you mentioned lemon drop and that it's not a new hop, because when you keep saying that you're playing with all of these new hops, like I know there are experimental varieties that come out from the hop farms every year, but not that many that make it into the hands of brewers. So I was sort of curious as to what constituted being new for you.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so it's something. Yeah, it could be something we haven't worked with, but we do, being in Oregon. And being pretty tied in with the local hop community, we do get access to those smaller batches, and
that's what I wanted to ask you. Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of times it's just it might be like 22 pounds or something like that. It's not a lot of hop, but because we have a 15 barrel system, that can work out pretty well actually. And so yeah, there's been a handful of experimental hops that we've that we worked with and liked and used. And then it seems like, unless it gets a name though, that's the thing. Unless it gets a name and more people have access to it, it's probably not going to be around very long, is what I feel like I've learned. If it only has a number, then it's just gonna, it seems like, they're always like, yeah, that hop had a really nice aroma and flavor, but the agronomics just didn't work. It was just, it was disease ridden or whatever, and so there's definitely
how often do you think that? I mean, it must be common enough if you're bringing it up.
I feel like it is. I don't know. Maybe it's just based on my experience of a couple hops that we've worked with. But there's one we just what was the number of that hop? Look it up. We started doing a seasonal IPA every spring, which we're going to use, experimental or like new to us, but probably experimental hops in it. And that we call Catch 23, and there was a really great hop that we used in that, and it worked out pretty good in the Catch 23. But then we did a collaboration with E9 from Tacoma, and let me find the sheet. And those guys, so they came down. We brewed an IPA here, and then when we went back up there, we had brewed the Catch 23. And we really liked this hop, and we're like, I think it would be really good in a Pilsner. It was this X13459, and yeah, it made this amazing Pilsner. It turned out fantastic because it was this hop that was like, it was fruity and floral, and it had a little bit of kind of a strawberry character to it, and yeah, so it made this just delicious Pilsner. And then, of course, yeah, the guys at Hopsteiner were like, yeah, that you guys bought the last of it. We actually bought them out. We started talking about it. We bought them out. And that's, I'm not saying we didn't buy very much hop, at the end of the day. I think it was
but if they planted 2 acres, yeah.
Yeah.
Or not even.
Yeah. Well, and I don't even think it was that much. Yeah. 2 acres. I feel like an acre, I think on average gets, I don't know, like, probably around 2,000 pounds.
No,
yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But, yeah. So unfortunately, yeah, that one went sideways. Well, it didn't go sideways. The beer was great, but the Steiner guys were like, "What did you like about that hop?" Because there's going to be something else coming up next. It's going to have citrus floral, kind of peachy strawberry, and stuff. So there's always something new. It seems like.
Yeah, but does that make it difficult though that you can't really get attached to something? I mean, there's got to be fun in the. Okay, we're always going to be making something different, or like innovation is key to the beer industry these days, and has been fueling it for so long. But there's also something to be said for, hey, we really like this beer and we'd like to make it again. And if you can't, I imagine there's got to be a level of frustration with that.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent. Although for us, it would come down to some of the other beers that we do. We brew our Kolsch that we make. Kolsch-tastic. We use Mount Hood hops in that. And Mount Hood is, it's hop that's been around for a really long time. And, at this point, I think there might be one grower growing Mount Hood. And so, we used to buy it from one company, and basically, yeah, they tore it all out because not very many people are buying it. And luckily, there's a local Oregon grower who I think we're a bit tight with, but then also I think, anyways, they want to keep it around as well. But that it's a hop. Mount Hood might not, I don't know, depending on how sales go, they might even tear it out. So then we might have to make a transition, and it's fantastic in this Kolsch. It's one of those hops that just, most people aren't using a hop like Mount Hood anymore, or if they're using something in that vein, they're going for, traditional like German, Hallertau or Herzberger or something along those lines. So I guess, if push comes to shove, we'll probably switch to a hop like that if they don't grow Mount Hood anymore. But I hope that still continues, Yeah, we'll have to see with these, like with experimental beer, Catch 23, we call it experimental IPA, using these new hops. It doesn't so much matter because we're brewing it for a season and then we're already planning on going to something new anyways. So in some ways it works out pretty well to have these new hops that there's just a small amount of them, because beer drinkers are looking for something new all the time.
I don't know. I feel like I've gone down this road too many times before, but there's something to be said for having, I don't know, traditional ingredients or ingredients that have been around for a while, or flavors or process, like whatever it is, to sort of help beer drinkers become, more evolved, more rounded, whatever, as opposed to just always trying something new. Like if Mount Hood disappears, that feels like it's sort of a loss for beer overall.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not. I
would be disappointed. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would be disappointed. Our beer, it wouldn't be what it is right now. Right now people are like, I think one of the things, I mean, besides loving the way this beer tastes, it's fun when people are like, what is that hop? When brewers, because they're the ones who ask that question, of course. Yeah. They're like, what is that? And we're like, it's Mount Hood. And they're like, Mount Hood, you know, just, it's, to surprise, you know, all these other brewers and stuff. And so, I mean, if Mount Hood doesn't exist anymore, yeah, we'd probably make this transition, and then we'd be like, yeah, it's, you know, it's Hallertau, and people are like, oh yeah, of course, you know. So that would be disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, I don't know how much, I'd have to look at how much Mount Hood we buy, you know. Well, yeah, we'll probably be buying like a quarter of all the Mount Hood that's grown in the world. Maybe. I don't know if that's actually true, but maybe, because I think it's down to like an acre or two or something like that.
Again, I should fact check you on it, but it's just, you know, the beach house is calling me at this point. More with Ben Love in just a moment, but first, a word of thanks to the companies that help keep the Drink Beer, Think Beer lights on the air. Pairing rich notes of chocolate and coffee from roasted malts with deep tones of vanilla and oak from its time in bourbon barrels, each bottle of Dragon's Milk is a delicious adventure waiting to be opened. Find Dragon's Milk near you at dragonsmilk.com. Also, check out NZ Hops. At NZ Hops, they feel that sustainability is not only being a steward for the land, but for our future. We're in it together. Join the conversation at nzhops.co.nz or on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. And we're also brought to you by Lawson's Finest Liquids. Their taproom, beer garden, and retail store are open 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Get beer, food, and Vermont hospitality all in one place. Learn more at lawsonsfinest.com. And now back to my conversation with Ben Love of Gigantic Brewing Company in Portland, Oregon. So I had Kolschtastic a couple of weeks ago. You sent some bottles in for the wine enthusiast panels that I was working on.
Oh, yeah.
And I dug the beer. It was a lot of fun to drink. And then afterwards, you know, like after I'm done with the blind tastings, I get to sort of look at everything, and I get to look at label art and, you know, packaging and everything. And I wanted to actually call you back then because you guys are using these returnable 500 ml bottles. And I know that was something that Oregon instituted or made available a couple of years ago. And it was one of those things that I always wanted to write about and think about and talk about. And then other things happened. How's that working out? I guess first, if you could just provide a little bit of background, because I butchered what this program is, but then how it's been going.
Totally. Yeah. So the Oregon Beer Recycling Cooperative that, you know, runs all the recycling, all the beverage recycling in Oregon, put together these refillable bottles, and they basically, there's a 12-ounce bottle and a 500 ml bottle, and we went into that bottle a couple of years ago, and it's working out. Yeah. In all honesty, like it's a fantastic program because, you know, the bottles, somebody drinks the bottles, it gets returned, and then it gets washed, and it comes back to us and we refill it. I mean, I don't think I need to tell people that, you know, refillable packaging is where we need to be. You know, there's a lot of people talking about that already. I know that there's some big companies that, you know, Johnson & Johnson and Unilever that have been experimenting with refillable packaging and trying to make that a regular part of their product line, essentially. Yeah. Because look at we all do it. We all throw tons of stuff away.
Yeah.
So if, you know, refillable is better than recyclable because there's the energy impact is really low to wash something as opposed to melting it down and reforming it. Unfortunately, I mean, it's one of those things at this point in Oregon. Yeah, it's an Oregon program. It's mostly Gigantic and Double Mountain Brewing on the beer side that are championing this packaging. You know, everybody wants beer in a can. So that's one of the things that's really been tough about it is that, you know, all the retailers, all the customers, you know, they're coming in, they're looking for beer in a can for the most part. And so, you know,
are you canning at all?
No, we don't can at all. Okay. Yeah, we don't can at all. Double Mountain doesn't can at all. We've decided to stick to our guns and try to do what we can to get the people that, you know, that care about this stuff to to decide to buy beer in bottles, in these returnable bottles. And it's a bit of an uphill battle, I mean, like during COVID, it worked out pretty well because, nobody's buying any draft beer. And so our bottle sales were really good. They're still good, but it's not like, I feel like if we were in cans, it wouldn't be as much of a push, we're definitely, we have customers that love the bottles and love what we're doing. And they obviously they love the liquid inside of it. So they're going to buy our beer, whether it was in a bottle or a can or whatever. But we're trying to tell this story so that people realize that, that if they really care about these things, then they're going to buy something in a refillable package as opposed to in a can that gets recycled. And the reality is too that a lot of people don't know this. I didn't know it until we started talking about it with the local cooperative. That all the cans that have the pressure sensitive labels on them, those aren't recyclable.
Yeah,
because they start fires in the smelting plants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been hearing more and more about that these days. Yeah,
and apparently before COVID, basically like the companies that do the melting down the cans and everything, recycling the cans, they were preparing to tell all the recycling cooperatives around the country that they needed to essentially like cull all those pressure sensitive label cans out of their out of what they were sending to be recycled, or basically like these recycling companies wouldn't take their loads anymore. And so it was coming to a head, and it might come to a head again. Apparently the only reason why it didn't is because the total volume went up to a level of cans that it wasn't as much of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's definitely something in the long run that is going to have to be solved. And so we'll just see. We'll see where it goes.
When you were talking about retailers, have you found that there are people who won't carry you because they don't want to carry bottles?
I wouldn't put it that way. I'd say, that it's more I mean, I guess that is how it is. I was going to say put it that way, but I guess that is how it is. That essentially they're like, my customers like cans, and so if you guys are in cans, we have your beer all day long, but because you're in bottles, then we're not going to carry it. And so I suppose that is how it is.
And what do you hear? And what do you hear from the customers when they come in or you're interacting with them? Are there people who saying like, I would buy you more often, but I
hear that from time to time, but also like, we have customers now that love the bottles, and I think, they love, they're into the whole bringing them back, and they know that they're going to come back and get washed and we're going to refill them. And so, that's something that, customers are bringing us back the bottles all the time. And especially, during COVID, we started doing home delivery, and, it was like, we were like the milkman.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. We were the milkman, and actually it's funny because getting into these refillable bottles, like when I was a kid, we'd go down to, there was I think it was called Sen's Dairy, and we'd go down there, and they actually had this. It was pretty slick. They had this like drive-through operation. They had a wall of coolers, and basically like we'd drive through, and we'd give them our old bottles, and then they'd give us new bottles, and we'd just cruise right out. And it was a fantastic way to do it. Yeah, it's interesting. Like in Canada, where my wife's from, once you get to a certain level of production, you have to go into refillable bottles.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean,
and that's why all of the Labatt's and all the other they don't have the embossed bottles like Sim Adams or New Belgium or like any of the fancy bells and whistles, right? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So I mean, why aren't we doing that here? I know why we're not doing that here. Because obviously for those guys, it doesn't make sense monetarily, I would assume, or that, they want their custom model.
Yeah.
But that's where we should be. That's where it should go. I don't know. That's a big problem that we all deal with all the time, right? I mean, look at all the throwaway packaging that's proliferated as a result of COVID, because everybody's getting everything to go.
When you get the bottles back, what sort of testing do they go through? Like, obviously you're cleaning everything out, and hopefully you're not finding too many gross things inside of.
Yeah. I mean, this whole program, as far as like, washing the bottles and everything like that, I mean, we ask the customers to bring them back rinsed, of course. But then, it goes to a washing facility, and, obviously, like, they've been washing facilities have existed and ran at very high levels for a really long time. Look at all the breweries in Germany, like all the big breweries in Canada, they're all running washing lines. And so those have, they have multiple cameras, lasers,
to check for impurities or, hairlines or anything like that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And to make sure the bottle is actually clean and ready to go. Yeah. When it comes back to us. So basically these bottles, they can get, I think the average life is like 25 fills.
Okay.
So,
it's pretty impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. And they can go longer than that. Yeah.
There was something, and I've talked about this on the show in the past, but there's something about after, I was done with all the reviews, and, there's a spare bottle that was left over, and I was sitting out in the backyard, and I was just drinking right from the bottle. And there's something that was really nice about having the bottle in my hand, and sort of like this nostalgic throwback to, like,
right.
I don't know, 2013, which is not that long ago, but like the aesthetics of it, or just the sensory experience of it, even if you are pouring into a glass, is that something that you think plays into? I
agree with you. I totally think it does. I've heard people for years say that, beer tastes better out of a bottle than out of a can. Do I think it's true? No, but
yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
But I've heard it for, I'm sure you've heard it before.
Right. That like IPA in direct sunlight in the bottle is, yeah.
It's pretty funny. But no, I completely agree with you. I think people do like that experience. That, the can, at the end of the day, I mean, I get it. Cans are lighter. If you're going like backpacking, or you're going down to the, especially during the summer, you're going down to the lake or the river or whatever, it's a lot easier to take some, a 6-pack of cans. But no, I think people do enjoy the experience of drinking out of a bottle a lot more. It reminds me of like, in the movie Shawshank Redemption, when they're like tarring the roof, and at the end they're like drinking, ice cold Bohemian lager, out of those beautiful bottles. I mean, and that experience, like you said, like you experienced it. I think we all experience it when you drink
there's
out of a bottle.
There's just something that's just sort of like a nice throwback to it, and just a little simpler and just enjoyable. Yeah. So before we started talking, I told you I came in with no particular plan, and I feel like we've been bouncing around a little bit, but you mentioned that you had notes in front of you before we started. And I didn't ask you what was on those notes, because I figured, like, if I hit like a point where I was like, well, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to ask him next. I'd just be like, hey, Ben, what's on your notes?
Go to your notes.
Yeah. Hey, Ben, what's on your notes?
What's on my notes? So we already hit a couple of them. I had collaborations on there, and then I had traveling. I was gonna, because like I should think about that, especially in the morning. Usually, it's 11 in the morning here, and so I'm not as jovial as I might be at 5 or 6 in the afternoon after having a couple of beers. So right. I should have some notes ready to go.
Next time I'll schedule this according to your personality timeline.
Not a morning person. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, with collaborations, we do a lot of collaborations. I've mentioned a couple already, but during COVID, it was interesting because, of course, people aren't really traveling, and, understandably, we're all trying to stay safe. And so one of the fun ones we did was with Ale Apothecary from Bend. And, Bend's it's 3 hours away from us. And so I think we were actually talking about that collaboration. We had started talking. before COVID. Anyways, we did this collaboration with Paul Arney from Ale Apothecary, and the whole idea was that we do an IPA, because whenever I go see Paul, he doesn't make IPA, but he likes drinking IPA. So whenever I go see him, I always bring him a case for our IPA. And so I was like, well, let's just, let's brew an IPA. You don't make these IPAs, it'll be fun. And so we headed down that road, and then, he wanted to tie it into his band, which is called Via for Real. So the beer is called Via for Real. And the idea was basically to have his band come play a set in the brewery to infuse the beer with rock and roll. They kind of have this like kind of surfy rock and roll indie rock thing going. And so that was always the idea. But then of course with COVID, it didn't totally make sense. So what we ended up doing is they did a live Instagram stream, and then I like blasted it in the brewery to make sure that it got into the beer. Let me tell you, it worked. The beer is fantastic. It was the most rockin' beer we've ever made. And it was delicious. So I highly recommend that if we have to go down to full on lockdown again, to any brewers out there to
play rock and roll too. I am blanking at the moment, but the very first episode of this show was with Matt Brindelson, and we were in Belgium, and we were visiting a brewery that's in the Duvel family that I cannot for the life of me remember what it was, but they have a barrel room downstairs that all it plays is Barry White records.
No shit.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Continuously, like 24 hours a day. It is just Barry White records. And that episode, I'll send you the link if you want, but that episode ends with Brindelson and I having a conversation, and Barry White does a cover of Dean Martin's Volare.
Oh, yeah.
Which I had never heard before.
I've never heard that before.
And just lost my mind with like how wonderful it is, but also how just insanely bizarre it is. So I can't imagine what those barrels taste like, but it's got to be smooth. So
yeah, it's fantastic. So I got to tell you, the Barry White thing. I'm a big funk and soul guy. I love funk and soul, and I was in Chicago a couple years ago and stopped into a record store there. I was digging, and I found I can't remember which store this was, but I pulled up this photo. They put little notes on the records and stuff, little like, so you know what the record sounds like or whatever. And this was on a copy of Barry White's sheet music, which is like the cover is a bed, like a silk bed, and it says sheet music with all the music. Anyways, because it's sexy as fuck. But like, but the thing said, it's like almost all of the Barry White records are under $5, and they're all good, but they still don't sell. Don't people fuck anymore?
I was going to say that's another beer name, but you already disappointed me with nose tickles and without being able to come up with one. So, and it was Deconic. So, yeah. I don't even know why I couldn't think of it right off the bat, but it was their barrel room.
Deconic. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you thought about nose tickles as we've been talking? Have you come up with something better? Was the back of your brain working, or is this like one of these things where I need to call you in 5 hours after like you've woken up and had a couple of beers?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to keep working on that. Yeah, I don't know. Like part of me is like going. I don't know why, but going to like a kind of basically like a Belgian wit, but with like Szechuan peppercorn.
Okay.
Because you'll sniff it and you get these nose tickles.
I think you're homing in on it a little bit more. I'd love to see this beer become a reality. I think that's just the in bottles, but you have to pour it into the glass so you can get the full aromatic experience.
The full effect. Yeah, exactly. And the visual as well. It looks
of
like
course.
Snow. So
anything else in your notes, Ben?
What else did I have? I had the traveling down. I was going to talk about all that stuff, and then our Pilsner series. So we've been doing a series
now you're talking my language.
Yeah, we've been doing a series of I don't know. We've kind of American Pilsners. I guess we've settled on American Pilsners. Sometimes call them like a West Coast Pilsner or whatever. But
Does that mean hoppy?
Exactly. Yes. Totally. Yeah. But and it's been
Does it mean
interesting for us
hazy too?
because no, not hazy.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not hazy. But just it's been a series of single hop Pilsners. So we use German malt, and then we started out last year with Citra. So we did Citra, Galaxy, Mosaic, Crystal, Lotus, and it's been an interesting journey for us. It's been interesting as brewers for us because basically, we started out, we've done, you call it IPLs or whatever you want to call them, but we've done a few over the years, but it wasn't until we started doing this, with regular consistency. We've been doing it for a year now, or a little over a year, that I feel like we've learned a lot, because when we first got into it, we added a lot more hop than we add now. So we dialed it way back. And I feel like we've gotten into a level that's really good. That, it sounds like you were excited when I was first talking about Pilsners, but then I could hear in your voice, you're like, oh yeah, those hoppy Pilsners.
Well, that's the thing. If I want like a huge kick of hops, like I'm going to go for a pale ale or an IPA or something like that. Like when I hear Pilsner lager, I just want something where, the nice malt profile comes through and something that finishes clean, and that is not going to require a tongue scraper afterwards. And, this whole, like, we have to Americanize everything, beer wise, like is, But are you finding that after you dialed it back? Yeah. That's why you go to Canada. But are you finding that since you dialed it back that people responded better? Like, I guess for context, I've talked with Jeff Allworth in the past, and I had sort of expressed surprise that Portland and Oregon in general wasn't as like completely embracing of hops in the beer scene as I thought maybe it was. Like, as an outsider, I'm like, oh yeah, that's
like, in what ways?
Like just like every beer is hoppy to the extreme, and like all Oregonians want to drink is hops. And Allworth was like, no, we are a lager people. Like, we are a Pilsner people. We are, easygoing, and like there's a time and place for it. But I guess just coming from the outside, it's like, oh, it's Oregon. They're hop forward. Did you find that after you dialed it back, people responded to it in a different way?
I think so. Yeah. Especially early on, I think for a lot of people it was just, I think, too hoppy. It was just too intense. It was too dry hopped, really. That was a big part of it. I mean, we dialed back the beer, back the hops in both the kettle, but especially in the dry hop. And that has been the biggest change. But I mean, like the level at which we're hopping, and especially dry hopping, is, I think we're at like a quarter or a fifth of what we started at, so it's a dramatic drop. And so now, if somebody comes in and they like a Pilsner, especially something that's, made with traditional hops, that they can have one of ours, and they're like, oh, this is nice, because it's at the same level, it's essentially kind of at a German hopping level, but with these nice, I'm drinking the Citra right now, and that's probably the biggest thing, is that we've come full circle as far as that was the first one we brewed a year ago, and now we've brewed it again, and the beer that we have now is dramatically different than the first one. And it's just, I feel like we've found the right pocket to be in for this beer. You know what I mean? We'll continue to work on it, but we're getting much closer. And so it's fun to do. As a brewer, it's fun to do these beers where we're continually working on them and continually like tinkering on them to get them just right. When we first brewed Kolschtastic, then that beer was the same way, that we've worked on it. We worked on it for a long time. We're still slightly modifying it, but we're pretty much where we want to be. But like with that one, we found that a combination of German malts has actually got us to the flavor that we wanted to be at, because, some of the German malts are really rich in flavor, and some of them are a little bit more, they're just subdued, they're mild, and so having a combination of both is where we found with our Kolsch that we wanted to be. So it's just, it's been a fun series. I don't know. Yeah. When Jeff's talking about like, I mean, Portland is definitely really hoppy, but I'd say, people run the gamut. I don't know. My mind went right away to like, for a long time, the number one draft beer in Oregon was Widmer Hefeweizen, which isn't hoppy at all. Or like, also the beer that people love to drink. I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure, the Pabst revolution that happened, like 10 years ago or something like that. You can thank Portland for that. Good or bad. You can thank Portland for that.
I was always blaming Brooklyn for that. I didn't know that was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was probably both.
Okay.
It was Brooklyn on the East Coast and Portland on the West Coast. So yeah.
I mean, I could also be getting all words wrong. I'm going to get a strongly worded email from him saying next week saying, I never said that. Although I'm fairly confident he did. No fact checking this week. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Do you still see Widmer Hefeweizen? I'm using their pronunciation around, or has that just been
the original
completely
hazy?
Yeah. Is that how they're marketing it now?
That was our marketing campaign. Yeah. Which I was like, yeah.
God.
Point. I love those guys, but just missed the point.
No, I know. Seriously, just poor Kurt and Rob. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're like retired on the beach now or whatever.
No,
not really.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, not on draft. You see it on the shelf. Yeah, I think it's a lot of cans and bottles and stuff. So,
really quick though, how have you seen Portland evolve in the last 2 or 3 years, beer wise? Because I always think of it as sort of a forward thinking beer town.
Yeah, I think it's really, your contention that, it was all hops and stuff. Definitely on the craft beer side, I'd say, that was basically true. I mean, I feel like, it was all hops, or for a pocket there, maybe like 4 or 5 to 10 years ago, there was a lot of Belgian style beers, which I think, you saw in a lot of places, but especially here. And then now over the past 3 years, has been the rise of the lagers as something that's not hoppy, I mean, it's basically like, I don't know. I'm not traveling a lot right now. So past 2 years, just been hanging out at home. But it's basically IPAs, lagers, sours to a certain extent. Although, I mean, I think we've all seen that's expanded and changed. We had Cascade, we have Cascade here. We have Logston that are making these, and obviously DeGard as well, making these beautiful sours. But a lot of that's changed now to, the quick turn sours. And then also it's like the sour, I feel like it should be sour in name only, like the pastry sours. I don't think of those beers as sour at all. I mean, I get it. There's a sour component to them, but I don't think of them as sours like the other beers, the aforementioned beers. But I will say that it seems like Oregon hasn't been, there are a lot of people that are buying these like pastry beers and sours, but it's definitely a very small part of our market. And even the hazy beers that we're making, our hazies, there's a lot of them that are really juicy, but then there's a lot of them that still have bitterness to them as well. So it's definitely, and it's not like West Coast IPA bitterness, but it's more than just the straight up glass of juice hazy IPA.
Yeah.
So we've seen that out here, that we've taken that style on. Well, I guess I wouldn't say that I know that that's what we do and a handful of other brewers do, but there's also the guys that make the stuff that's like, straight up juice in a glass. Because people love that. So at this point, it's a little bit of everything, but I feel like it's expanded. For a long time, I think people knocked us for not having. They'd come out here and they'd be like, "You guys are very narrow as far as what you do," And I'd say that we have kind of the full range at this point. So Yeah. Yeah. It runs the gamut.
Cool. Well, I'm hoping to get back out there. I don't know when, but I always enjoy drinking in that town. It's just there really is something for everybody, and depending on mood or, time or place, and beers just seem to hit better when I'm there. So, hey, thanks for.
Where are you headed for vacation?
What's that? I'm going down the Jersey Shore for a week.
Nice.
Yeah. So we'll build sand castles and drink a lot of White Claw and, listen to EDM, and it's going to be great. It's just
not Billy Ocean, not like I don't know. I'm thinking of if I was on the Jersey Shore, I think I'd put together kind of an 80s pop hits.
Okay, some yacht
collection.
rock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess that's what it would be. It would be yacht rock. Yeah, totally.
Okay, all right. I mean that's obviously a better choice. I was going with what everybody thinks the Jersey Shore is, but yacht rock is much more my speed. Along with and after you started talking about pipe wrench earlier, I'm definitely I'm gonna go buy a good bottle of gin and just drink gin and tonics all week. So,
I thought you were gonna say you're gonna buy a good bottle of gin
and a lot of IPA,
and just do drop shots. Just be like, Daddy is on vacation.
Yeah, no, that's not with a 4-year-old. There is no way in hell that I could even attempt one of those with a 4-year-old. Getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch something called Chicken Squad. That's the new obsession in our house, is something called Chicken Squad. So thanks for doing this, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for inviting me.
Do we get all of your notes? Was this was totally worth your time? Nobody is listening anymore. Everybody is tuned out of just, us blathering back and forth. But
right.
I hope you had fun at least.
I had a good time. Yeah, exactly.
So will nose tickles be coming to a glass near you soon? Only time will tell. In the meantime, I'm hopefully enjoying a gin and tonic right now, but thanks for staying with us on this show. I'll be back and rested next week, and I'll have a bunch of great show planned for the coming weeks, actually. But before I actually head off, I'm going to ask you to check out beeredge.com to subscribe to the newsletter to catch up on episodes of the very excellent Beer Edge podcast with Andy Crouch, and to get with us on the This Week in Rauch Beer group on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram at TW Rauch Beer. If you're interested in advertising on the show, please reach out to Liz Melby. She's at liz@beeredge.com, and she'll let you know all of the pertinent information. And speaking of that, this episode was made possible by the support of NZ Hops, the cooperative of master hop growers. They are a passionate collective of farms dedicated to innovation and sustainability. Leading the charge in sustainable farm practices, some NZ hop farms have over 5 generations of knowledge that inform their composting program, used by growers to promote healthy, regenerative growth of hops year upon year. This creates high-quality soil, a critical component of healthy growing conditions. At NZ Hops, they feel that sustainability is not only being a steward for the land, but for our future. We're in it together. Join the conversation at nzhops.co.nz or on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. And we're also brought to you by Dragon's Milk. 20 years ago, New Holland Brewing Company embarked on a journey into the unknown, brewing the first batch of Dragon's Milk bourbon barrel-aged stout. What started as a single barrel in the back of the brewery has transformed into the best-selling American-made stout today, pairing rich notes of chocolate and coffee from roasted malts with deep tones of vanilla and oak from its time in bourbon barrels. Each bottle of Dragon's Milk is a delicious adventure waiting to be opened. Find Dragon's Milk near you at dragonsmilk.com. As promised, Sean Lawson is back with me on the line. He's the founder of Lawson's Finest Liquids in Vermont, which is a sponsor of this episode. So thank you to them. And we're talking about Sip of Sunshine. And you've said, Sean, that your new brewery and your brewery in general is the house that Sip of Sunshine built. Go into that a little bit more, because I'm sort of curious as to how one beer has helped shape your business.
Yes, John. When we launched Sip of Sunshine, I was brewing beer 7 barrels at a time, all by myself in Warren, Vermont. And the decision to start brewing beer at another facility was a real leap of faith for me to let someone else handle my beer. But the way that we did it was with our own ingredients, our own yeast, our own process, and that enabled me to create a flavor profile that was consistent with our brand and what our fans expect. And the beer just took off. It was our grand slam success, and it enabled me and my wife Karen to grow the business and grow our production each year since then, and expand our distribution and position us by succeeding with our sales to have the wherewithal to build our new production brewery here in Waitsfield, Vermont, along with our dream, the destination tap room that we have here. Finally, a home for Lawson's Finest that we never had before, with the brewery being at our house, not open to the public. So it couldn't be a better entrepreneurial success story for us, a dream come true. And it's all thanks to the Sip of Sunshine and our fans that have supported us along the way and continued to buy that beer each week, each month, and each year. So thank you to our fans out there.
Well, you can learn more about Sip of Sunshine, and you can find it at the brewery's full distribution footprint by going to lawsonsfinest.com. And Sean, thanks so much for telling us the story of Sip of Sunshine. A reminder to check out Steal This Beer every Monday, the Beer Edge podcast, and the BYO Nano podcast on the 15th of every month. Nate Schweber does the music. Jeff Quinn designed the logo. I'm John Holl with the out-of-office message enabled. New episodes release every Wednesday of this show, and that's when I'm going to be back again to drink beer and to think beer.